we go. Now y'all can hear me. Good morning, everybody. So, we had a bit of an early morning end to the shows this morning. We don't have many podcasts happening, but there we go. We don't have any podcasts happening at the moment to record because just kind of light day. That's all that it is. So instead, what we are going to do is that I'm going to play for you guys one of our podcasts that we have that is currently up and rising, and that is What Makes the Cow Guy Cry. And we are going to play the new episode right now on the airwaves. And it is video and audio, so that's why we have our YouTube here going at the moment in time. So we are going to play that, and then I'm going to get it posted up to Libsyn. So all of the peoples that are probably wondering, hey, where's the podcast? It's usually posted by now. I wanted to wait. It's going to get posted audio version at 9 in the morning, but we are just going to play it right now on the airways and on YouTube, so that way we can just kind of get a little bit more exposure to it. So this podcast is about Cow Guy, aka Scott Shellady, and his life, and he goes into depth with the different tragedies that have happened with his life, and it is honestly a very remarkable story that he has. So what we are going to do is I'm going to play it, and then that's going to end our morning. So I wanted to do something that got us to that 9 o'clock hour. So without further ado, let me stop yapping, and here is the What Makes the Cow Guy Cry.
Hey, Cow Guy, how you doing, man?
Good afternoon, sir. I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Hey, listen, I want to get right into it. Kind of a tough topic. Last episode, we started talking about bullying, and you had me thinking about it all week long. And one of the things you brought up was, then somebody asked you, about Chloe and what happened. You said basically to shut somebody up at a party, you just say she got bullied to death. What do you mean by that?
I mean, yes, I'm shutting them up, but it's also the truth, but it's a much faster version of what happened. But about the age of 5th or 6th grade, probably more like 6th grade, she really developed into a woman a lot faster than all of her friends. And I mean, I don't mind saying my daughter was beautiful. My ex-wife was beautiful, so there's no reason why that shouldn't have flowed through her genes. But she was gorgeous, and when she started to have all the curves of a woman and her real beauty started to shine, that didn't go over very well with all of her other compatriots, right? All of her girlfriends were still flat-chested and, had little boy hips, and it hadn't really started to happen for them. And there began to be a fair amount of resentment. And that kind of started to flow into 7th grade a little bit, the summer between 6th grade and 7th grade. And then the resentment really started to, gain a lot of steam going into 7th grade. I didn't sit around on my hands. I saw it happening in front of me. It was pretty bad. My daughter was an open and loving person. She was on every team. I coached every team. She was a Girl Scouts, softball, acting. She played, piano, all these tons of events. I mean, tons of interests. But as people started to resent her for what she had become, she went from a duck to a swan, basically. She became more and more introverted to the fact that she didn't want to leave the house. And that's alarming for a parent, right? And she didn't want to go to school. There was a time we were called into the school because they found some girls had made a website, IHateChloe.com. And so she just felt like the weight of the world was coming down around her. And for all intents and purposes, in her world, it was. So I enlisted the most expensive and the highest ranked child psychologist in the state of Illinois, who was only about a half hour, 45 minutes away. And I just started draining my bank account to try to make things better. And she started to see my daughter once, maybe twice a week. I don't know how many times it was, but where we lived, they were just ill equipped to handle it at her school. When 7th grade started, the way that they thought to handle the situation was, and they never really called it bullying, but they thought it'd be a good idea for the principal of the school to shadow her during the day, which is just mind-boggling to me. If you don't think that brings more attention out of a situation, I don't know what does. but they just didn't know what to do. So after probably 6 months of seeing this child psychologist, and she was very, very good, but in the end, it was because it was just myself, my daughter, and my wife. She thought the best thing to do would be to just to remove ourselves from the situation instead of trying to change the entire town, which made sense. And so we put our house up for rent, and I rented a really nice house in the city of Chicago. And my daughter went to a local high school on the north side there in Lincoln Park. And we thought that would be a great new start for 8th grade. But what had happened, which we did not know, was the bullying had taken its toll. She had absolutely no self-esteem. Really had a hard time. I mean, she had a couple of friends, but really was attracted to the dredges of the school because they didn't judge her. They weren't critical of her. They weren't doing a lot of the things that the other girls and guys did. I mean, what happened in our old town where we were at is once the girls really turned their backs on her, the guys that were kind of after the girls in those 7th and 8th grade years realized that if they went after her, they pursued my daughter, then the other girls would turn their backs on those guys. So she just became like persona non grata, and almost like, nobody wanted to talk to her. It got a little bit better socially when she moved to Chicago, but her choice in friends had really drastically changed. They weren't straight A students that were doing a lot of activities. Her friend groups were the lower of the lows. These guys I didn't really like. Some of these girls, a few of them were okay with, but a lot of them just weren't the top notch people that she'd like to hang around with. She used to like to hang around with before. And then that accelerated as we got into high school. She went to Lincoln Park High School. And it slowly but surely manifested itself in the fact that she was hanging around some pretty bad people. I mean, some really bad people. And she did the best she could. But their behaviors and what these kids were getting into, even at as a freshman and sophomore in high school, was pretty bad. So we took my daughter out of a school there and sent her to a place out in Moab, Utah for a while. And then, so I'm just trying to highlight the fact that we were trying. I was spending tens of thousands of dollars per month trying to rectify the situation because I just didn't know what to do. I hadn't been through it before. My wife at the time hadn't been through it before. And we settled upon a school for about 3 months in Prescott, Arizona, for kids that were going through a lot of this, the same type of thing that she was going through. But you know what it did? It didn't really click. It was like, it just taught her how to get through the system, but it didn't change her. She knew how to mask herself and then do what was expected. But at the end of the day, it didn't make her feel any better. So she had it was difficult. And it really never, ever really got a lot better. She acted like it was getting better, but it didn't really get a lot better until ultimately two people that she was hanging around with one night took her out and they experimented with drugs and the drug killed her. And that's how it happened. So it was a slow decline from 6th grade until senior in high school, those 5 or 6 years. And I tried everything I could, so did my ex-wife, to make it better. But I'll always think for the rest of my life that maybe I could have done something more. But I really threw everything I had against the wall. Maybe I could have done something more. I still think about it all the time, about what it should have, could have. We also thought about moving back to London for a little while there, maybe just absolutely totally take her out of her safe place and throw her back into London. She was looking forward to doing that, but then the firm that was sending me back to London was clearing EDF Mann at the time. And Mann, I don't know if you remember when Mann Financial blew up and that whole thing, so I had her go out there, interview for a school, get accepted into a school. We started looking for houses. And then when she was all excited about doing that, then Mann Financial blew up and the whole plan got absolutely pulled out from underneath us. The rug got pulled out. And so that was another big disappointment. That didn't help. So we kind of lurched from one disaster to the other until finally it ended up killing her. So it was a rough 6 years, I'll tell you that. And I learned a lot. And I made some mistakes. I'm not perfect. But I'd never seen anything like it in my life. And it was the first time I've had to deal with something like that. But I tell you, instead of going down what I just done with you at parties and social events, I just cut to the chase and say she basically was bullied to death, because what it did was it robbed her of her self-esteem. She started hanging out with the wrong group of people, and that ultimately led to her death.
How did it feel to say that, all that you just talked about?
I think about it all the time. So, I mean, I really think about it all the time. The what ifs and the shoulda, woulda, couldas are always there. And to make matters a little bit more difficult, my wife and I got divorced in the midst of that 6-year span, because I'm not going to say the stresses of that played into it, but it definitely was there. That wasn't the only reason. We had drifted apart earlier, so we were kind of heading that way anyway. Maybe it sped it up, maybe it didn't. My daughter did very well pretty well, as good as a kid could do with a divorce, I suppose. But she went to live with her mother for the first few years of the divorce, and she fell out with her mother, and I got custody, and so she flew back to Chicago, and she died in my custody, which I probably will never forgive myself for, just because it happened under my watch. And that's been very, very difficult for me to swallow.
1 out of 3 middle school girls, 1 out of 4 high school girls report excessive bullying. What would you say to any parents that they don't know what to do? They're like you. It's never happened. You didn't really know what to deal with. I mean, where would you tell someone to start?
I would say, don't be afraid of what other people think. Throw everything you have at the problem, every resource you have at the problem. People, I think, are slow to react. You're not the first person to ask me about this, by the way. Some people have asked me if you could go back and do it over again. I did a pretty good job of throwing everything I had at the problem. I spent as much money as I possibly could to try to make, what money wasn't going to be an issue. It was going to be process was going to be the issue, but do not think about it too long. If you see a problem, act. As long as they're still alive, you have a hope. You have a chance as long as they're still alive. You can't make any great moves after they're dead. So as long as you got your child, your daughter who's getting bullied is still with you, throw everything and the kitchen sink at the problem. Do not be embarrassed and do not be shy. Overreact. It's don't worry. Make a mistake and overreact, because you'll be glad in the long run, because you'll have somebody there for you around the kitchen table and Thanksgiving table for the rest of your life. I don't have that.
You're pretty open about how this affected you, and but you guys you said something. You said, well, she handled the divorce as well as I guess she could. I mean, exactly how much of a factor was that in like her development?
I can't say for sure, but I know it didn't help her. I mean, right? So I can obviously, to be honest about that. But I mean, we were better parents after we were divorced than we were when we were together. I mean, there's a certain kind of chemistry that you can pick up as a child when your folks aren't getting along. We'd been married for 25 years, and we just became friends, and then not even really friends anymore. So, and my daughter and I had a very, very tight relationship, and that didn't. I think about that a lot, about what kind of a deal that played into it. I'm sure it played a little bit into it. I'd be lying if I didn't think so, but I don't think, all the mitigating factors of her death were already there. The bullying was already, a lot of other things were already there. And I'd like to think that maybe even after her mother and I did separate, that I could spend a little bit more time and more one-on-one and try to get her the help that she needed. But I can guarantee you that, in any kid's life, they would love to have their parents together, and that wasn't the case. So I'm sure that disappointed her and hurt her. But, she lived with me in the John Hancock building the last couple of years of her life. And that was fantastic. But I still had I still was dealing with a lot of the issues that she had about no self-esteem, hanging around the wrong people. She'd bring over some of these dregs of the earth when I was at work. I often wondered, Jim, if I should have quit my job and just stayed with her 24/7. You just don't know, I just thought maybe I should have walked away from the training floor and taken a year or two off. I mean, it would, hindsight's 2020. It wouldn't have mattered really in my career, I suppose. But I was trying to make the money. I was trying to make the money that I was spending on all the, this child psychologist and all the special schools and stuff. So I was kind of burning the candle at both ends. But she'd bring over people sometimes, and they would steal like my laptops and stuff, and then call me and tell me if I wanted it back, they wanted $400. I mean, those type of kids, it's unbelievable. I couldn't believe the scum that sometimes was showing up, because she never would have hung around those people before. But now that she'd been so damaged and she was such abused property, her views of herself were so low, and no matter what you did, you couldn't make her feel better. It had the damage that where we used to live had been done, and it just seemed like there was no undoing it. Maybe if she'd lived, it would have taken 20 years to undo it. I don't know. But I did a lot of the right things that the child psychologist asked me to do. And it just seemed like to me that the damage had already been done. And how do you get your self-esteem back when it's been absolutely torn? I mean, how do you go to school knowing everybody hates you or everybody's talking about you, especially at that age? I mean, it's just devastating. So again, instead of having this long and drawn out conversation I'm having with you, when people say, how did she die? I say, she was bullied to death. And I think that pretty much sums it up. I often have wondered too, I haven't done it yet. And maybe if I have some sort of platform in the future, I've thought about trying to get behind the bullying campaign, or maybe raise some awareness and money and maybe start some sort of fund. I don't know. I'm still, it's 11 years ago. I'm still grieving her death. It's hard to get that immersed back in it again, because even right now, talking to you, I'm sick to my stomach, knowing what she was going through, and I couldn't stop it. It was like that big round boulder in Raiders of the Lost Ark. And once it got the inertia to get going, it was going to smash everything in its way. It was really hard to stop it, and the only thing that could stop it was death. So when you're I don't know, how old was I? I was in my mid-50s. Or no, I was 48 years old when she died. When you're sitting outside the John Hancock building and they take your daughter out in a white body bag and load her in a mortuary truck, that's pretty scarring.
Part of the theme is, how do we, recover from some trauma? Not always easy. So I'm going to go a little bit further on that one. You said something that, I don't mean to pile on right now, but we're here, so let's do it. You said she died in my custody, and you carry that. How do you deal with that?
I compartmentalize it. I put it in a box, I put it up on a shelf, and I visit it every now and again, because if I wallowed in it, it's pretty overwhelming. That devastated me. That took me a long time to get over as well. I'm not over it. I just compartmentalize it. I put it in a box and put it at the corner of my brain, and I visit it every now and again. But to be the person in charge and in charge of her and in charge of her health and her care, and having her die on your watch is, I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine anything worse. And it happened. And I just, if I sat around and thought about it every single day, I'd be a zombie. So in order to lead a life that I want to lead and lead a life that she'd want me to leave, I just have to put it in a box and put it away. And every now and again, I pull it down and out of the attic and take a look at it and remind myself on how bad I really feel about it. And, a couple of things have come away from that, Jim, is number one, she used to tell me, because I was kind of tough on these really bad people that she would bring over to the house when I was in the Hancock building. And she'd always say, Dad, you're too judgmental. You're too judgmental. There are also good people that have had a bad time. And I thought, what a better way to honor her legacy and memory is to try not to be as judgmental as I was back then. And I'm much more open now. And maybe you have even noticed it with me since, the last time we were talking. I don't judge as much as I used to, if at all. I'm much more forgiving. And like I said to you probably on a few other of these podcasts, now I realize that everybody's got a cross to bear. Some crosses are heavier than others, but everybody's dragging something. And that's because of her. She asked me to do that, and I'm trying to do that and be less judgmental. And that was one of the things that she used to say to me all the time. And so if I could at least do that, it makes me feel better, about a little bit better, I suppose. Nothing really makes it go away, obviously, but what is your choice, Jim? I mean, I felt so bad, it doesn't matter, but I can sit there and crawl up in a ball, or I can just decide to be happy. I'm just going to decide and choose to be happy, because if you're here, you might as well be here. I mean, stop it, stop being such a wimp and just make the decision to be a contributing member of society. And while you're at it, don't judge people like, as bad as it used to. And I think I'm doing a good job of that now, but the only way that you really can get out of bed every morning is you do kind of have to compartmentalize, put it in a box and put it in the attic, and every now and again go up there and take a look at it to remind yourself. You'll never forget, but if you really want to get down and dirty, you have to open that box up and take a look. And I do every now and again, because, I tried everything I could. She died in my care. I had 17 years with her. I'm grateful for those 17 years, but it's just nothing that I would wish on anybody else. Since then, I've had a business associate of mine and a really, really good friend of mine in London both go through the same thing with 17-year-olds themselves. Both of them were boys, not girls, and that's a club you just don't want to be a member of. It really is. You just don't want to be a member of, because everybody's different. But, her birthday and her death day roll around every year. I don't take those days off. A lot of people do. I'm not in the same house that we lived in when she was alive. So obviously that's all changed. But I know some people are still living in the same house that their children died in and have not changed their rooms. I don't know. I mean, psychologists will probably have a field day with that, but everybody's got their own way, and that's mine. Mine is just to compartmentalize and choose to be happy.
Typically I like to talk about the theme of basically recovering or bouncing back from trauma and grief, but I'm not even going to go there today. You really laid it out for us today, and we appreciate that. We'll maybe look at some of the techniques in the next episode, but I don't know, just you are really laying it out there, and I think that you're helping a lot of people, so thank you for that.
No problem. No, that's another thing. If I can do, like I said, if I can do something that makes a difference, then that makes me feel better.
He's the Cow Guy. I'm Jim Deedlow. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, see you later.
All right, there we go. So that was I don't know why it flips over like that. That was the latest episode of What Makes the Cow Guy Cry podcast. And there's a bunch of keywords after that you'll see, but that will be posted at... It's 8:48 right now, so that's going to get posted later today at 9 o'clock, and you will see the audio and video version of that on our YouTube channel. Go to WJOB1230, YouTube.com, and also look to our socials. We are going to start posting a little bit more on our social medias, because we want to get a lot of these clips out there and share this podcast around. As you heard, is a very powerful and impacting story that he has as he went into depth with the death of his daughter. But to wrap it up, and it is 8:48, so we're going to do a quick take a look at traffic and weather just to end out the day. So I appreciate all of our listeners coming in and hearing about podcasts and kind of keeping up with the morning show. I know it's kind of a light morning today. But let's take a look at traffic and weather. So currently right now at the Sacramento studios here, weather, say it is 35 degrees. Today we're seeing highs of 47, lows of 40 degrees. Not as cold with some sun and then increasing clouds, mostly cloudy and windy weather with a shower in spots. And moving forward into the rest of the week, it kind of sucks with weather, I'm not going to lie. Highs of 46, lows of 31, windy with some sun and clouds, partly cloudy in the nighttime. Saturday for the St. Patrick's Day weekend, high of 40 degrees, low of 38, cloudy and chilly. Not something I want to hear since I'm going to be out in the city for celebrating my friend's birthday. Shout out, Matt, happy birthday. Happy birthday to you, bro. Sunday, highs of 58, lows of 18, becoming windier with rain early, and then snow with colder temperatures. So I guess I can't put the scraper out in my car just yet because of the snow that's coming up. And then as we kind of look through, it's kind of odd because Monday, get a high of 21 degrees, but then look at Friday, high of 60. So we got to love the bipolar weather of Northwest Indiana. Let's take a look at traffic real quick. Traffic in the Northwest region is looking pretty good. 65 going north and south is looking good. 80 going east and west is looking good. 90 going east and west is looking good. We're seeing Chicago Skyway is looking pretty good, but there is an accident. I'm looking at the Dan Ryan Bishop Ford right there. Accident Dan Ryan, I-94 west at 71st Street, exit 59C going west, reported and updated at 8:33. And we're seeing a bit of heavy traffic at the Bishop Ford and Dan Ryan at the connector. So not where that accident is, but the connector right there, I-57 south and I-94 East. Seeing a lot of heavy traffic as people are going into the city at this moment in time. And then we're seeing just a bit of heavy traffic within Chicagoland area. And on Stevenson going north, we're seeing that it is quite heavy just all the way through. Going south is not too bad. We do got an accident on the Eisenhower on the right shoulder, I-290 east at California Avenue, exit 27B. But then going west, still looking a little heavy in traffic. And if you are headed in to the airport's Rosemont area, I'd say leave a little early because we, not only with the delays with TSA, you're also seeing a little bit of delays in traffic. So just a bit of heavy traffic headed that way. But that is going to wrap up the morning show. Thank you guys so much for listening to our podcast, morning show, and our community programming. We will be back tomorrow with the Region Rundown with Bob and myself. And Joe will be here producing. Again, we got Veterans Views. Thank you so much for putting in the chat. Veterans Views radio show tomorrow every Friday from 9 to 10 a.m. And also, I believe if it is not preempted with sectionals, first of all, actually no, it'll be regionals, I think, that are happening this weekend. For sports, we have Region Bandstand on Saturday. Got to shout out Gino there. He's great and does all that stuff. I got to put up his graphic. Did not forget, Gino. Don't worry. I will get that graphic up there for you. But, so we got a lot of great things happening. Polka Hour, of course, on Sundays. So, got a lot of great and exciting things going on. Be sure to check out all these podcasts, as well as, I believe, Mastering Local Marketing just posted up about,